We're ironing on the floor today because company is coming.
Company is coming. Get rid of the couches. We can't let people know we sit.
Company's coming and they're going to be sleeping on this couch right here. And my bedroom has French doors and doesn't offer much privacy for either party. So I'm going to do a little curtain project that I can temporarily put up and take down when they're not here. That's what we're going to do today. You're watching a video, so in this video, we're going to, sorry to call you out like that. I'm gonna walk through how my ideation process went and what I picked, what pojagi patchwork style even is and where it comes from. And then I'm gonna talk about the general approach I'm going to take to this, as well as what a flat felled seam is. I'm gonna show you how to do a flat felled seam. And then you're just gonna watch me attempt, and I'll show you the finished product when we're done. So, that sounds cool. Stick around. There are so many cool curtain inspiration ideas on the web. Just a single curtain, 2 different colors. Really liked that one. It almost felt too easy. And then the next option I was thinking of was a cafe curtain. I have this really cute gingham here, so that would have looked nice, all bunched up, and would probably offer more privacy because the bunching makes it a little less transparent. I ended up opting for the pojagi patchwork style. It's a beautiful patchwork style that originates from Korea. Pojagi means wrapping cloth, so it was a piece of fabric that was traditionally used to wrap up items for carrying or gifting or storage. And for folks who didn't have the money to buy one nice, really big piece of fabric, they would use scraps of fabric that they already had and piece them together into geometric patterns using flat felled seams stitched by hand. That's where pojagi and this patchwork style sort of come together. Kind of beautiful to think about people throughout history using scraps and using what they had to make something beautiful in a very practical way. I feel like that rings true today. So that's the style we're going to be working on. Having done very little research, other than in the history of the word, I'm going to basically just focus on making really neat flat felled seams. So flat felled seams basically are seams that look nice from either side because of the way you make them.
This is an aspen. You can tell that it's an aspen tree because of the way it is.
And I'm just gonna focus on making them really uniform in width and making a bunch of really long ones and then chopping up the fabric after in order to get this sort of like patchwork effect, sewing those together rather than cutting out each individual piece to size, calculating exactly how much seam allowance we're going to lose with every thing we stitch together. So I think that will make more sense. So we're gonna try that. So stay tuned to see if that works out. Part 4, how to sew a flat felled seam as promised. So first thing you need to do, take your 2 pieces of fabric and set them a 1/4 inch off from each other. And then we're going to line up the edge of our foot with that top piece and just sew on down. So basically the fabric's a 1/4 inch apart and we're sewing a 1/4 inch seam down the line of the fabric. I thought this shot was so cute. It looks like Wes Anderson. And now we just need to make sure that seam is totally open. This will make it look nice on the other side. And then pull down that 1/4 inch once and iron. And then we are going to fold it down again. I'm getting back in there. And this, you just want to iron out of it so that it is really flat. And then I've pinned them in this project. This piece is so small, I didn't pin it. So now we just need to sew really close to the edge all the way down just to finish up this flat felled seam. And so I'll just line that up. This angle was funny to sew up, but we got there. And then this is your finished product. So it looks really nice on both sides, and that's pretty much it. It's not too hard, actually. I'm leaning towards going fully one color on this just because I'm boring and no fun, and I think it'll look better. And I have a bunch of thread colors, so I assumed I would have a nice sage green in here. Sadly, I do not. And the closest color matches we have are these two. Beauty blogger moment. Neither of them are really a color match at all, so I'm gonna have to go buy some thread. Sad. Because I hate leaving the house. Often I wouldn't care, but in this project I really want the thread to feel invisible. We've got our long pieces of fabric here, and we're just going to do our first big flat felled seam with our new thread. So I'll just do that stitch all the way down the fabric. If you love time lapses, you're gonna love this part. Pushing down all the way across, and then we're doing our fancy little fold and really making sure we iron that. You can just let the iron sit a little bit. The audio on this is so funny, so I just have to show you what it sounds like. You can hear my feet like pitter patter. And then lots of pinning all the way down. And this is where we'll sew for the second stitch. I had to freeze it because this is like Blair Witch Project footage. That's what it looks like coming out of the machine. And then now we have this long piece to work with that already has a flat felled seam down the middle. So I'm looking at my reference guide of what I want to create and just kind of marking off sections and cutting away chunks to work with. So kind of just winging it on different sizes. These are all going to be cut again and stitched together, so it's really not that serious, but you can see the square here is really helpful in trying to keep my fabric as square as possible. Dogs are barking, traffic's trafficking. As I sit down to sew this line, I thought it might be time for a little check-in. So here we are. We have two pieces coming together. Sewing the two really long pieces together was helpful. It was nice to get a lot of seams out of the way in one go. But I will say, it maybe didn't get as much done as I thought it would. Let me find... This project really does feel like being lost in the wilderness sometimes. You have to go with the flow, at least for the way I'm doing it. So I had this example mock-up, which was helpful. So I looked for pieces where it just was two pieces coming together, not like two pieces coming together at a T with a third piece. And so I cut out those with the very long combined pieces and kind of marked them off as I went. And I pretty much hit all of those. This looks great. It looks really pretty up to the light. You can see the lines there. I will say there is no way I could do this project if I didn't have that cutting mat and the square cutting tool with the rotary blade. Trying to do this with scissors would be a nightmare just in terms of getting everything square because there's a lot of 90-degree angles on here, and just being able to cut and recut everything has been helpful. So yeah, I'm feeling a little like, we'll see how it goes. It's going okay, but if you're the kind of sewist who wants to like sort of do a paint by the numbers, just follow the instructions, this is not the project for you, at least not the way I'm doing it. I'm just kind of like taking it one step at a time, adding another piece, seeing how it looks, and going from there. That's how it's going, so let's sew this one. This will be like the first real 90-degree angle I'm sewing, so we'll see. Okay, done. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Okay, we're having fun. So at this stage, we have a lot of chunks already sewed together. Hopefully you can see there's, you know, some seams there. So some of them are pretty complex already. It's a little subtle unless I hold it up. And so basically what I figured out to add complexity, and by complexity I mean more small squares, we can essentially just take one of these larger areas and just cut it, and then take that, put it somewhere else. So this long strip, I could put that here instead, and now I'm seeing all these more interesting shapes. I realized it doesn't matter too much about having the exact dimensions because you can always just chop something off here and put it over there. It really is quite flexible. It's a bit later in the day and I'm feeling more settled. I'm about to sew another big chunk together and this feels like really creative work. I feel like the idea of like craft is on some level always creative, but there's different degrees. Like I'll put in one bucket the like assembling Legos or drawing something to try to copy a picture you already saw on Pinterest like perfectly. Like that is creative because you're making something, but you're also like following a careful set of instructions. So to me, it doesn't feel as like purely creative. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have like throwing pottery or drawing freehand where you genuinely don't know what your hands are going to come up with and it feels really exciting and kind of more vulnerable and more creative in my mind. It feels a little more creative. And I feel like I enjoy sewing, but it feels really prescriptive and you know, you always have to follow the instructions and stuff like that. So this really feels like a form of sewing that's like tapping into that like pottery, freehand drawing type of creativity where every single step I'm making it up as I go and I'm making like minor judgment calls and it feels really good. For me, sewing when I was younger, like in middle school, was pretty creative to the point of not looking good, like sewing clothing items that were kind of had poorly finished hems and didn't look professional. So I kind of gave up sewing and coming back to it, I really wanted to be precise. So I've been making quilts and this is the first project where I really let myself like be free with it. And it comes with a little bit of vulnerability. You know, one, because I bought the fabric and thread, I don't want to waste it. Two, because I'm recording this, and so if it's total failure, I won't post it, and that'll also just be such a waste of energy. So I'm happy that it seems to be working out. And it feels good. So we continue with another flat-felled seam. I feel like it's funny that I just spent the whole day taking a perfectly good piece of fabric, chopping it up, and sewing it back together. All right, we've made it to the end of the project. I'll show some camera shots of it. I thought this might be a nice place to just hang them up, let the light shine through them, and discuss my final thoughts. If I were to permanently put these here, I might have not chosen sage. Green light is a little spooky for people. I feel like, I don't know why, it feels like it's in our subconscious, like we think we're gonna get abducted or something. Anyways, you're not gonna get abducted. So I wrapped these up this morning. Basically, I finished the edges just by folding over 1/4 inch and then folding over again and sewing. Sounds a lot like a flat-felled seam. Felt exactly the same. And then I tried to do mitered corners on the corners, and what I did was not regulation, but they ended up looking okay. So I would just say look up a video on how to do mitered corners if you're gonna do it. You might fall into one of two camps. One camp saying right now, oh, I wanna do this project. Camp 2 is saying, I do not wanna do this project, but maybe I wanna have a curtain that looks like this. Fair enough. So first, to the Camp 1 people, I will say it's a pretty tedious project. I don't want to lie to you. It took a lot of time, maybe 5 sessions of like 5 hours of sewing. So if you're up for that, have at it. Difficulty level, I think it's somewhere between like a beginner project and a quilt. So it might be a good step, you know, before you try to make a quilt, because I thought this was a little bit easier than quilting because it's a little bit more forgiving. I'll put all the specs of the materials in the comments so you can calculate how much you think you'll need. The last thing I'll say is that I didn't worry so much about right sides matching right sides in terms of this flat-felled seams. I kind of just like tacked them on wherever, and to me it ended up looking fine. So if you don't want to worry about right sides to right sides, you don't really have to. The people in Camp 2, I see you and I understand. Hindsight's 2020, you know? So you have maybe more foresight than I do, but you don't have to do this to get one of these. You don't have to make one of these from scratch, is what I'm trying to say. There's sellers on Etsy who make them custom, so they're kind of expensive, but given the cost of materials and the amount of labor I just mentioned, it makes sense. So you can have one professionally made for you, and they'll be beautiful. It'll be great. So to both camps, I want to say hello. My name is Lauren, and this is not a sewing channel. So this is just a channel where I talk about interior design and do projects to make my own space a little bit nicer. So that's what I'm about. Now I'm going to wrap up finishing the project by adding grommets and hanging them in my bedroom. So I'll show that now, but thank you for watching. It was a blast.